oh, wait, I think we talked about that person on our podcast.
Houses were at about 7 Bitcoin, and today houses are at 5 Bitcoin.
Their mind is on Bitcoin. They are not trying to hang out. They're not trying to talk. They're not trying to, When
people would ask what Nextblock is, I would say, do you want to know about the business model that's unique, or do you want to know about the social media features that are unique?
Did you think that this was going to happen this fast?
So I want everyone to try this. If you have an idea that you think would work, but it needs some social aspect, that's what Nostr gives you.
Yeah, I think everyone's like, yes, I'm ready to criticize you. Yeah. Sign me up.
I will always tell you that.
You're listening to Flirting with Bitcoin, a weekly chat with my very interesting husband about Bitcoin and how the world and our family's life is better because of it.
It's season 4, and we've moved to Nostr City.
So my Bitcoin lessons are done?
Your Bitcoin lessons are never done.
So what does new social media have to do with it?
Babe, Nostr is more than social media. If Bitcoin is the new money, Nostr is the new internet.
You really think so?
I do. I believe Nostr will drive the next wave of Bitcoin adoption. So Nostr City is where we need to be.
We?
Yeah, of course we're bringing Keon. You got your bags packed, buddy?
Yes.
Good job. Don't forget to pack your NPub.
Let's go. Hey, Ian.
Hey, Mandana.
We're back from El Salvador.
See.
We went to the Adopting Bitcoin conference over the weekend.
See.
And it was a lot of fun. Is that just all you're going to say? Agree with everything I say? See. The phrase I used the most that I was there those 5 days was lo siento. Everyone thinks I'm a Salvadorian. I do look El Salvadorian, but I'm not El Salvadorian. I'm Iranian. And so many people would kind of look at Ian, and then they would just turn to me and they'd be like, she speaks Spanish. I'd be like, lo siento, no hablo español.
That did happen.
It happened. So I felt guilty.
Why don't you speak Spanish?
Why don't you speak Spanish? I mean, I've told you this story. I don't know if I've said it on the pod.
You have.
I have. Yeah. I've been yelled at for not speaking Spanish before. So I feel like my childhood trauma was coming back at me while I was there. But other than that, it was lovely. And I definitely want to talk about that whole experience. There's just a lot that happened. It's pretty crazy thinking about sitting in this basement 3 years ago and you explaining to me the very basics of Bitcoin. And I remember we once had this episode, which I think was called For the Culture. It was one of the first 20 episodes, maybe first 10 where
in the first 10.
Yeah, where we talked about the slang and the internet culture of it all and the people and the 100+ episodes we've done. It's oh, this person's name, that person's name. And then all of a sudden you're standing next to that person, not connecting those dots until after they've walked away. Oh, wait, I think we talked about that person on our podcast. Oh, okay. And then people either knowing who you are, knowing who I am, or after I'm talking to them being oh, you're flirting with Bitcoin? I listen to Flirting with Bitcoin. And it's oh my gosh. So it's just wild. But when you think about it, people in this world are kind of self-starters, just like people who would start a podcast. So everyone's we're all kind of in the same boat. Even people that we talk to that are have been in this for a long time, whether it's having Bitcoin or having some type of Bitcoin project, even if they're years ahead of us, they were probably where we were at one point. So it's really fascinating. And it's a different class of people are coming all the time, right? Some people, I guess, graduate, sell their company. I don't know what graduation is. But it definitely feels like we're learning a lot. So there's some kind of education happening for us and other people that we met that were also yeah, we're here to present on our idea. We just started it, So just meeting people at different stages and then meeting people who are yeah, I just really like Bitcoin and I wanted to come. This is my first Bitcoin conference. And just being all right, well, you need to look at Nostr.
Yeah. It's
being
it's yeah, you're on the cutting edge of Bitcoin,
cool.
but I got something new for you.
Yeah. Can we explain Nostr to you?
I got a new drug.
Let's download a client or two.
Yeah.
So yeah, hanging out it's just wild. It's wild that a month ago we went to Amsterdam, met all these people. A month later, we're in El Salvador seeing some of those people again. Like I've made like a very good friend who was the first person I talked to in Amsterdam. First person I talked to.
She was the first person you talked to.
She was the first human being that I talked to at that event. We were sitting next to each other, Tanya, and I just adore her. We ended up spending the whole week together that time. And then at this, she was on the team, but really leading the Nostr booth. And she's been leading this tour. But even her, because she's new to the space too, and some of the other people that I've talked to, everyone's just in awe of how kind everyone is. And the funniest part of it is that I feel like all these dudes pretend to be assholes on the internet, but they're the sweetest little sweeties.
They're assholes to the normies.
No, they're just sassy little accounts on the internet. But in person, they're just so kind. And like, even just generally, I feel like men in societies tend to be standoffish with each other, but everyone's so friendly and hugs each other, you know? And it's also the international piece of it. I've never been to a Bitcoin conference in America. Americans are, less touchy-feely, but it's just, I really love the vibe. And I think it's very funny that as Trump is like now a Bitcoin president, maybe, I don't know, Bitcoiners are trying to say that, but we'll see if that happens. But as that's happening, like one of my concerns is that it like further perpetuates the stereotype of like crypto bros and all that stuff. But it's so wild because it's like, you go to a Bitcoin conference, everyone is so nice. They're not at all like I feel like crypto bros is almost synonymous with F boys. And it's like, oh my God, I don't want to say too much, but I've talked to women at this conference who are single and they're like, these guys their mind is on Bitcoin. They are not trying to hang out. They're not trying to talk. They're not trying to, of course, look, I like to flirt. So dating, all that kind of stuff. I'm always like, what's going on? Are you single? I ask the guys, I ask the girls. But it's just really funny that that whole persona that the media exudes, and also probably people that are successful and are loud are the only people that are getting up to the mainstream. But still, it's just really fascinating how different that the whole community is from what they're portrayed as. And even what they portray themselves as.
That's part of the reason why you have to go to the conferences. It's its own version of proof of work, right? If you don't go to the meeting of the people, you're only relying on what people have told you about who those people are. And so these conferences are held all over the world. Adopting Bitcoin seems to be like the new one that's picking up the slack from the regular Bitcoin conference.
The Bitcoin Magazine.
Bitcoin Magazine conference. Yeah, that one has all the shit coins and all that fun stuff. And it's kind of fallen off.
I mean, I would say that one's gone corporate.
Yeah, I mean, they have their own incentives now. And their incentives are to, work with the people that are investing in them and work with the people who are making them relevant. And they get a lot of interviews with that legacy financial world that's now moving over to Bitcoin. So it all makes sense.
You also have to think about the financials of a conference. It costs money, and whoever's going to pay for it, sponsor it, whoever's going to buy the tickets, whoever's going to want to buy the more expensive tickets, all of that kind of dictates the content of a conference. And even like the one we just went to, I mean, I feel like, were you the one who said this? Like the higher priced ticket, those people are probably the only people who paid.
Yeah, I said that. There's a lot of speakers. So
there were like 125 speakers in the Signal chat that we were in. So probably more speakers that just hadn't joined that one.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of local El Salvadorians who had very, very cheap tickets. I forget what the cost was. Maybe it was free even. And then just a lot of crude. I mean, so everyone had a special thing around their neck, most of the people. So then it's like, well, who's actually paying for this? It was the people who paid the higher price ticket, I think, to support the conference.
Absolutely.
They were happy to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Plus the sponsorships and all that fun
all
stuff.
Of those things. I mean, but it felt, and maybe I'm being naive, but it felt like supportive of the cause of bringing people together in a space to share ideas.
Exactly.
Instead of like, let's bring people together to sell something.
Yeah, not a lot of people were selling stuff.
That's true. It was a lot of ideas. Even for us, they were like, where can we download it? It's like, sorry, you can't. Not yet.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. I think that brand adopting Bitcoin, the builders have decided that that's where they're going. Mm-hmm. And, I consider myself a builder. So amongst those people, I like just ideating with people and talking about, what do they think they're doing that's different? What do they think they're doing that's like, adding to?
Yeah. What are your challenges? Yeah. Like, what did it take for you to get here? And like, oh, you've had other projects. What were like just having those conversations were so valuable because, like I said, some of these people have kind of already lived what we're about to. Like one person we talked to very specifically did not take any external funding, and he made it work, and it works. And he never had to take money from someone else. And he talked about the difficulties of just sticking to those principles when you have a good idea and your stuff works. And I don't know how else we would have had a conversation with him if we didn't go to that conference.
Exactly. And it was a lot of people like that. Like that's just a very specific one that we both interacted with. No, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed being around that group of people. I even got to play some poker. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. We were playing poker for sats. And
well, an interesting thing you said about that is that normally when you play poker, it doesn't matter to you. But because this was Bitcoin, you took it very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if very seriously is the right way of saying it. I just normally when I play poker, I get bored, right? Like it's very boring to me. This was like a different feeling in general because I've never played for Bitcoin, number one. And number two, like when you go to bet, you're like, that's 10,000 sats or 50,000 sats or 100,000 sats. And as we're in this bull run right now, 100,000 sats is roughly $100 now. So like when we were playing and someone bet 100,000 sats, I was like, $100? Wait a minute. I started paying attention, you know? I was like, wait a minute.
We used to throw 100 sats around like it was nothing.
Well, 100,000 sats we were giving out to people on their cards for their birthdays. Yeah. And today's your cousin's birthday, and I just sent him 100,000 sats.
Aww.
And he was like, wow, thanks. And I was like, well, everyone else got 100,000 sats. Why shouldn't you, you know?
But well, the kids did. He's not the kids' generation, but he deserves it. He deserves it. We love you, Cheyenne.
Yeah, and he gets it. He's into Bitcoin.
He is.
But yeah, no, it was interesting because I normally get bored, and in this particular instance, I didn't get bored the whole time. I definitely played the way I normally play, which is very conservative. But when I would catch cards, I would play the hands that I was dealt. When I lost, it hurt. I lost one big hand, and you know, me and that guy now we have like an inside joke. I got his phone number or whatever, and the first text I sent him was like, I want my money back. And it's like, it's real. It's like, I want my sats back, you know? But in poker, like, I don't care if I lose like, you know, $100 in poker regularly because I was never trying to win. I was just trying to have fun. But playing for sats is different, that's for sure.
For sure. So before we get more into the conference and how it went for us, you know, as we went to present on Nextblock, our new company, babe, what time is it?
The current time is 8:71, and we're approximately 2,121 blocks since our last recording.
And if I gave you one crumpled up, torn, dirty US dollar bill, how many acres could I get on sunny Bitcoin Island?
Well, we haven't broken less than 1,000 sats yet, but for $1, you can get 1,082 sats.
Did you think that this was going to happen this fast? Like that mental conversion that you were just talking about? It's so easy for me now. We paid in Bitcoin a lot in El Salvador, and it was so easy for me to understand how much things were worth.
It's easy at certain intervals, but obviously closer to 100,000 is the easiest because it's, you know, 1,000 sats to $1. To do the conversion in your head, it just makes, you know, as the price goes up, it becomes easier. But also just over time, it becomes easier when you just see the Bitcoin number more often, right? And so like, you know, when Bitcoin was at $50,000, it was very easy to just do the conversion and say, okay, it's half of $100,000, right? So since we've started season 4, Nostr City, shout out to all the Nostriches out there, we run up from about $60,000 to $90,000 just this season.
Yeah.
So that's 50% gain since we've started this season.
So somehow you never heard about Bitcoin and started listening to our podcast this season and you started buying. I just want to say you're welcome.
Yeah. And, you know, we have a couple of friends that we've kind of gotten on board during this season finally.
Yes.
And, you know, some family members and stuff like that. So they're all getting a taste of like what this is.
Oh, yeah. One of my best friends texted me yesterday and said, thank you so much. We're going to put 20K in February in as well. And I was like, that's great, but you need to DCA.
I mean, yeah.
I was like, it's going to go down. And she said, I know it's going to go down, I'm sure, but it'll go back up. And I said, yes, but you shouldn't. You don't need to do it that way. This isn't buying stock.
It doesn't. I mean, it matters when you get in, but it doesn't matter when you get in as long as you get in.
Yeah.
If you're trying to figure out when to get in and you're not in, that's the problem.
But it's exciting because I think they don't understand what Bitcoin is at all, and they're not really putting their head towards that. I know they're taking it as, oh, this was a good stock. They study it a lot. They understand what it is.
Sure.
Instead of like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. You don't even know.
Yeah, but the craziest thing about all of this is, we haven't really done the Satoshi Price Index this season, but last season when we ended the end of the show, houses were at about 7 Bitcoin, and today houses are at 5 Bitcoin. So like houses are getting cheaper right in front of your eyes if you live your life on a Bitcoin standard. Maybe you didn't have 7, maybe you only had 5. Well, guess what? Now you have a house, and that's only going to keep going. So if they don't stop printing, we keep winning.
So if you're new around these parts, Ian and I started a company 2 months ago called Nextblock. It is a social media app that pays you for your attention. You set a price for 60 seconds of your time, and advertisers set the highest amount that they're willing to pay for someone to watch their advertisement. And then every time there's a new Bitcoin block on the blockchain, the marketplace does a match, shows you an ad, you watch it, you get paid, and you keep scrolling. The app also has some other features. We've talked about this 2 episodes ago, but what we wanted to talk about at the Adopting Bitcoin conference in El Salvador was this idea of the attention marketplace and that core feature of our app that we ultimately want to build, test, and then make it open source. And so really important to talk to other people that are building on Nostr and understand their use cases, see what they've been working on. And, of course, you always want to make sure someone else doesn't already have this idea. But yeah, that was the goal. And I think, immediately it was really cool. We were speakers at the event. We were speaking on the second day, the morning of the second day. But the night before the conference started, there was a nice speakers dinner. And this was a cool event. This was really when I was like, wow, we're in the tech world. Like we're at a private event in the tech industry.
This is Mandana's first startup. So she doesn't normally experience this world.
Most people don't normally experience this world.
In my world, most people do.
Yeah, I guess that's true. No one else. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. But it was at this event house on High Hill because we were in San Salvador, which is already elevated. There was this beautiful backyard. There was just a fire pit going. They were making us a bunch of food. There was a bartender. They were just it was just beautiful atmosphere. It was what you would picture when someone was like, oh, it's the private dinner for the elites. Not the elites, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. So at that event, we didn't think we'd know anyone. We ended up seeing the first person who was not related to us or friends with us who reached out to us about our podcast when we first started. So shout out to Mary. She works at Fetty, but it's crazy. She walked up to Ian hi. And Ian was like, oh my God. And then we ran into other people we knew. And it was just, that was really cool to see okay, we somehow are in this community, even though we haven't been in it for a very long time and we've only just started going to in-person events. But again, really speaks to how kind and friendly Bitcoiners are and just very welcoming, open, ready to learn who you are and what you're doing there. Everyone's like, why are you here? That night and then the 2 days at the conference. And then the next day it was Nostr Day at this place by Bitcoin Beach called the Bitcoin Mansion. So you guys just need to look it up. If you go to their they have an Instagram profile. It's beautiful, very aesthetic. They have all these cool videos.
You put mansion in your name, you better have an Instagram page.
So it was really cool. There was beautiful Nostr Day event. If you go to my Nostr profile, you'll see a really pretty video of it. But I'm sure, I know that they're going to be putting out a lot of content. Max DeMarco, if you know, he's a YouTuber and he's on Nostr. He creates really great Nostr content. He was filming the whole time and he's been traveling with the Nostr booth, the Central American tour they've been doing in all the Adopting Bitcoin conferences. So they're going to be pushing out a ton of content soon. The panel that opened up Nostr Day was such a good explanation of Nostr. I'm excited for that video because I feel like that's what I'll share with a lot of people. We were able to go to all of those things. So it was 4 days of things where we were able to talk to a lot of people who understood our idea or were trying to solve adjacent problems. And I'm like so happy to report that everyone loved the idea. I believe that Nextblock is going to work. I'm very confident. We just have to do it. And Ian and I are very committed to enjoying life and not suffering for arbitrary reasons. So we're going to take this slow and try to be thoughtful and build this the right way. And then we just got a lot of advice that reinforced that plan. I mean, I feel like every day we were like, do you think this was a success? Do you think it was worth going on this trip? And every day we were like, yeah, this is amazing.
It was good for the company Nextblock, but I think it was also good for me as personally to just reinforce the idea of like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, I think this idea will work, but I'm, of course I think my idea would work. Who wouldn't think that their idea would work? And I feel like I'm a good salesman. So like, if I want you to believe in it, I feel like I can make you believe in it. Yeah. But I feel like people just kind of got it right away. Sometimes you have to like walk them through the chaos cartel and harvesting and selling your attention. But once you get them past that, then they're like, oh yeah, this is a much better version of that. Mm-hmm. And I can turn it off. Cool. And that was like most people's reaction. But what got me was that a lot of people that I was talking to about Nextblock, they would always make the assumption that the attention marketplace was like our thing. Mm-hmm. And I would always have to be like, no. Actually, we're building it in a way that like anyone can use it. We just have to build it first to prove to people that they might want to use it. And then it, for like developers and stuff, that's where a couple more people would be like, oh, so like, what if I wanted to do this? And I'd be like, yeah, in theory, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Like, and there was nothing anybody could come up with that I would say no to. And that's how I was like, oh, so once this exists, like there's all kinds of people that would want to use this. It's just that I was so focused on the like Nostr client use case that I wasn't even thinking that there are people outside of the Nostr client world that would want to use this attention marketplace.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I talked to this one guy who has like Bitcoin ATMs. And he was like, yeah, so like I have these ATMs. And he walked me through like what he wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, you could do that. And he was like, oh, cool, yeah, let's do that. And, well, so how do I get up? And I was like, wait, time out. Like, it doesn't exist yet, but like, in theory, yes, we could do that. And so he was like immediately like,
that's awesome.
Like, because he's all about like, okay, you're buying Bitcoin from my ATM, but also we're trying to get you Bitcoin. Like the mission is to get you Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So if we got to put like a video in front of you that says, here's an extra 100 sats. Like, so
do you want to watch an ad before you deposit?
Instead of like your fee or something, like something like that.
That's a great idea.
Because that's what I jumped to. Because it's like, if you're charging fees and instead you collect the ad revenue for them watching the ad, that would be like a way to offset the fee. But anyway, the point is that I wasn't even thinking about things outside of like the web and or Nostr clients. And there was a completely new use case. That just was like, oh yeah, there's probably hundreds of other of those. So like, this is totally going to work.
I think that's kind of like, it's hard it's like we have to restrain ourselves, right? Like we need to relax, we need to calm down and not get ahead of ourselves. But it's so exciting to think about what this is going to be. And I forget who it was, but someone was like, this is bigger than you even realize. And I was like, no, we realize it. We were a little scared to do this because of how big we think it can be. But again, you got to take it a step at a time.
Yep.
And see where that goes. But yeah, it's just incredible. I just want to talk with you a little bit about how you feel about the messaging of the company, because, it's an interesting choice that we made to make this a for-profit company from the get-go. If you haven't been to our website, go to joinnextblock.com. You're not coming into this project, if you're looking at it thinking, it's an open source project. It looks like it's trying to make money. Hopefully it looks like it already has some VC funding. I really love our team that made our website. So I just think, they knocked it out of the park. But yeah, what do you think about how we've presented it? There was one person that I talked to that said, well, who's on your team? How many people do you have on your team? And I said, it's just me and my husband. And she said, oh, he's a developer? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh. And later I told Ian, I go, oh, apparently getting the developer is the hard part if you have a good idea. Obviously, I guess she just assumed I'm not a developer. I'm not. Nothing about me gives off developer. But I was like, oh yeah, I got a developer. He's my husband. Does what I say.
Yeah.
Build that app.
Yeah, I mean, I would be on the other side of that. And I would just tell the joke like, yeah, I'm just building my wife a social media app. And everyone would just kind of look at me for a second. And then I would tell the story. It's like, I'm not joking when I say that. You know, my idea is the attention marketplace.
Yeah, but none of y'all were listening.
Nextblock is her idea. Yeah. We had a off books merger of two ideas.
No, we had a baby. This is our second baby.
Okay, cool. There you go. But no, so, you know, I think the messaging is good. I think, you know, one of the things that I started doing was when people would ask what Nextblock is, I would say, do you want to know about the business model that's unique, or do you want to know about the social media features that are unique? Because I can't talk about both at the same time. So you usually start with one and then people don't even realize that there's the other. So I just front load that to be like, hey, choose your own adventure.
I like that. I need to use that.
Because otherwise you just end up ping-ponging back and forth and you're like, and then this, and then this, and then this. It's like, no, I'll tell you all about the business model first, and then I'll explain to you how those work in the features, or I'll tell you about the features first, and then I'll explain to you how the business model plays into those features. And so it was just very interesting because most people chose business model. Almost everyone chose business model.
Yeah, because you don't really hear that phrase at a Bitcoin conference.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even thinking of that, but yeah.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
I wasn't even thinking of that. I just was thinking like we definitely know there are two distinct parts. And I think instead of saying attention marketplace, I just say business model. Almost everyone chose that. I think one person was like, well, what's new about the social media? And then I kind of went into the neighborhoods and stuff like that.
If you want to hear about the features of the app, though, we talked about it in the show
103.
2 episodes ago.
103.
So definitely check that out. One of the things that we learned after doing a focus group with our friends and family on our presentation materials before this conference was that, these are too many ideas. These are all big ideas. It's a lot to throw at people, especially if they don't know what Bitcoin and Nostr is. One of the things we did in our presentation that I really loved, and so just generally what we're going to do is we're going to create a video version of our entire presentation that we did at the Adopting Bitcoin conference. Yeah, you forgot that we were doing that? We've been a little busy. Yes, we really like our presentation. We worked really hard to refine it. One of the things we did is we did a comparison. We compare the existing ad experience to the ad experience on Nextblock, and also we compare the business models of the Chaos Cartel versus ours. And we got compliments on that. We didn't have it in our previous presentation materials, and now we do. And it seems like, that was a good way to present these new ideas.
That was also feedback from Saurabh.
It was Saurabh. Shout out to Saurabh.
Yeah, that's why you do focus groups.
It is. And he's run a successful business for almost a decade, maybe even more. So again, like talking to people who have done, it's a technology company. So talking to people who have done something like this before is just so helpful. But I wanted to say that, as we're trying to figure out our messaging, it's so similar to what we've been trying to do on this podcast, which is like just trying to figure out our messaging on how to get people to understand what Bitcoin is. And in this space, explaining Nostr is very simple, and explaining Nextblock becomes very simple. Time will tell what that means for, the rest of the people in the world, because we want them all on Nextblock, I guess.
No, we don't.
We don't want everyone.
I don't want everyone. I want there to be hundreds, if not thousands, of Nextblocks.
That's true.
That's what I want.
Yeah, copy paste, please. But yeah, it's
No. She doesn't mean that. She doesn't mean copy paste. I just want there to be hundreds.
Copy paste the attention marketplace. Well, don't plug in.
No, what I'm saying is I just want there to be a bunch of different niche experiences. I can just take my Nostr account from one to the other. We don't need to have a unified social media experience anymore. We can build a social media experience for 100 people if we want to now. And we can all try it out. And they don't have to, if they have a business model that works with 100 people, great. Like that's what I mean by I just want there to be a bunch of Nextblocks. I want everyone to try this. If you have an idea that you think would work but it needs some social aspect, that's what Nostr gives you. It gives you a constantly growing user base that you do no work for besides build your app and attract a couple more people to the protocol. It's just like Bitcoin. When you attract people to it, we all benefit.
Yeah, that's such a important point, because when you say, I want to start a social media company, it's like, how are you going to get people to move from where? And it's like, there's already people on this protocol. It's not really about us getting them on there. It's about us giving them an option to move to, and then hopefully tell their friends about it. Maybe I'm being naive, but I don't even know how much marketing we're going to need, if any at all.
In the Nostr community, probably zero.
Yeah. So again,
new client, we'll all try it.
I think everyone's like, yes, I'm ready to criticize you.
Yes,
Sign me up.
I'm ready to tell you how you did everything wrong.
I know. I love that though. I love that type of engagement. So yeah, fun times, babe.
Yeah.
I remember you saying while we were on this trip that these have been the craziest 2 months of your life, career-wise.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just crazy because we're out here doing it, and the idea, the thing that we're trying to create, just the more we do it, the more confident I am that it's going to work. And I think a lot of my previous ideas that I worked on, like the more I worked on them, I was like, this isn't going to work. Like I could see how it was going to fail, or it would just be this spot where you're just like stuck. And with Nextblock, it's just not materializing yet. Like it might in the future, but these 2 trips have just like given me so much conviction, similar to Bitcoin, where it's like I'm past the point of will this work? It's more like how long is this going to take? This is all happening. All these thoughts are going through my head, like as the price of Bitcoin is going from 60 to 90.
That's the part of it
But it seems like every time we go to El Salvador, the Bitcoin price goes up.
That's true. You're welcome, Bitcoiners. Something we're doing is working.
Yeah. So no, it's just the price run up also just kind of, it hadn't happened in a while, you know? And you kind of forget that like, oh yeah, that's what this is supposed to do.
Right.
And so you're looking at a certain amount of money going like, oh man, I want to do this thing, but that would be like my whole stack. You know, you got to wait 4 years basically. That's the rule. You got to wait 4 years, and it's definitely doable. Like I do believe we have the resources to do it. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take? And
we have a lot of options.
That's just something that's never existed for any idea that I've had. And the more I do it, the more convinced I am that it's going to work. That's crazy. That's like the craziest 2 months of my life.
The last week has been a lot of inputs. And so now you're processing, I'm processing, and soon we're going to have more ideas. And Ian came downstairs. Ian does bedtime for Keon every night. Keon and I are a little too clingy to each other. So Ian a while ago said, I'm separating you two on the floor level of the house.
Yep.
You say your goodbyes, I take him up and I'm going to give him a bath and put him to bed. Like Ian literally separates Keon and me every night. So
it's for the better for everyone that way. It's better for everyone.
We're very in love, my son and I. Also my husband and I, and my husband and son. But like Keon and I are, we're very cliche. But with that, Ian and I are away for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. And usually that's when we come back together and one of us has an idea. Tonight, Ian comes down the stairs and you say,
oh, yeah, I said, I know how we're going to do intersections.
So if you guys remember, the features in Nextblock are broken out by the wilds, city, neighborhood, and block. Your block is 21 people that you pick and you only see their content, their comments and replies. Your neighborhood, no limit on people. The city is the relay and the wilds is the universal Nostr feed. In the city, we have districts and intersections. We previously said that districts are
one hashtag
and intersections were
combination of 2 hashtags.
But tonight, Ian came down the stairs and said,
combination of 2 hashtags is not the way to do it. We need to actually treat intersections as a unique item, similar to hashtags. And so just like hashtags weren't a thing on Twitter, that was kind of just manifested itself. It was just you put this character in front of words and that means something. Well, for intersections, I think we should do the same thing. And instead of a hashtag, we're going to use a plus and that'll signify an intersection. And then it'll be a string. So like plus music, and then the ampersand sign, and then another string. So it'd be like plus music and fashion. And that becomes an intersection. That becomes data in our system that is unique from hashtag music, hashtag fashion, right? And so I was sitting there thinking about, well, do I want to limit people from how many hashtags they can put because we're going to do the combination of to indicate an intersection? And I was like, I don't want to limit people, but then if someone puts 20 hashtags, it's like 20 to the power of whatever to determine all the different intersections there. And I was like, that's just not going to work. That's not going to scale. I don't want to limit people. And when I thought of this plus sign, I was like, well, if hashtags were like an accidental creation to put topics into a random string of text, why can't I just use another symbol to put another concept into a random string of text? And since hashtags happen to be like, you could indicate like a double plus or whatever, it's multiple pluses. An intersection is literally just a plus. It's just two lines intersecting. And so I just think this is really cool. I think this will be like a very unique feature that Nextblock can have and use for various features outside of just tagging data. And the two that come to mind immediately are the advertisers and the neighborhoods. Because when we were in El Salvador and I was explaining this idea, a couple of times I got to the social media stuff when I would talk districts and intersections. Having already talked about the advertising model, they would always say, oh, so I can target the intersections or I can target the neighborhoods. And I was like, well, you can't really target the neighborhoods because of X, Y, and Z. But now with this like unique type of data called intersection, similar to how hashtags are unique, we could allow targeting in a way that's like, well, if you signify your neighborhood has certain districts and certain hashtags, and then advertisers say this ad is about certain districts and certain hashtags, right? Like if they do that, then it's not like surveillance capital targeting. It's just you signaled.
You labeled it that.
Yeah. And so
this isn't like data harvesting. It's just scanning. I don't know the technical term for it.
Yeah, it's just aggregating.
Yeah, it's aggregating.
And so what happens is
that's what I meant.
Yeah. And so like it works for both sides, right? So now when you're typing in the normal, comments or whatever, and you put plus and then, two strings together, it's going to autocomplete just like hashtags, right? Because we'll have all of that. But then now advertisers, when they're typing, it'll autocomplete from all the things that people have entered in the system. And then if the advertisers add something new, then it'll autocomplete when people are typing, right? And so it'll just be like this reinforcing system of like, this is the actual intersection. And like sometimes people might write fashion and music versus music and fashion, but over time, because everyone's just auto-completing, the most common one will be whichever one people usually start the string with. If it's fashion and music, then that'll be the one that auto-completes all the time.
So I have two thoughts on this. One is people were saying that to me and I was like, yeah, because I figure we'd figure it out. But yes, that came up a lot in my conversations with people too. And two, this is why that woman was like, oh, your husband's your developer? Because this is the kind of stuff that you don't even have the patience to think through when you're building. Because it's like, no, this is just how we're going to do things. Whereas as the person building this app, building this company with me, right? But like you get to think about this all day long before any code has been written. A little code has been written, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right? Like, and you often, when I ask you, why do you think this company isn't doing well? Or why do you think this happened in places that you've worked in the past? One of the things that you pointed to is that there was no one with the technical skills at the top. And I think it's been really wonderful working with you so far or just in general through life, because you're thinking about a bunch of things that I'm not thinking about. And I'm thinking about a bunch of things that you're thinking about. We sometimes disagree on what's priority, but I feel like in the moment when one of us is like, no, this is the priority, the other person's like, all right. And I feel like we're complementing each other's skills so much. So I'm going to close this episode with a very funny story of what happened to Ian and I for our actual presentation. And actually just what happened to us personally at this conference. I never drink. And I, for some reason, was in El Salvador, this beautiful speaker's dinner the night before the conference. I was wearing a dress. Ian looked handsome. We're hopping around, meeting a bunch of people. I somehow have 3 drinks. And I'm telling you, I never drink. I felt okay. We get home. I'm all right. I go to sleep. I wake up. I am so hungover. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to pull it together somehow. I get myself to the conference. 4 hours in at the conference, I'm like worse. I end up going back. Ian goes to a poker game. It all works out, right?
Yes, it all worked out.
Somewhere around 5 p.m., Ian's like, I think it's the elevation because San Salvador is elevated. And then the conference venue was also on a higher mountain. And so I was not the only person that got sick. A lot of wives got sick that night, I think.
How convenient.
I know.
It was also a full moon.
It was. I forgot. I was too sick to remember that. But Ian eventually comes back. I'm coming back to life. And I get out of bed and I say, Ian, we need to memorize this presentation. I think like the risk management expert in my brain was like, we need to mitigate all risks. And I made Ian and I stay up till 1 a.m. memorizing our presentation.
Yep.
We have 3 videos in our presentation that were fully recorded videos, just like if you go to our Nextblock website. It's like our manifesto, a video that explains the attention marketplace. We had shortened them, but they were supposed to play throughout our video, really to break up the experience, not have it us just be standing there talking. I'm a little type A when it comes to presentations, guys. Nothing was working. Like only the visual worked. And it was just very unfortunate because I had messaged them and I had tried to mitigate all of these risks, but it was what it was. They were trying to do a lot at this conference and the space that we were in was just not fully set up for that. But we were able to do the presentation. Why, Ian?
Because you made me stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning memorizing it.
Yes. So it was fine. And it went so well. And people came up to us afterwards saying that it was like one of the best ones they've heard, if not the best. But who knows if they were just being nice. But really, they were like, don't worry. The presentation was great, even though we couldn't hear the videos.
Yeah.
We ended up not playing the videos and just did it. But so it's like, I feel like that was just such a beautiful moment for us as like a married couple. Cause it was like, whatever, it's fine. It's not going to be like as perfect as we wanted it, but it's fine. And I just remember a while later, you were like, this was a great presentation. We have recording equipment at home. We will just record this and make this available for everyone, which I think is a really great idea too, because these conferences aren't accessible to everyone. It costs a lot of money and time. My parents had to watch Keon for 5 days. Like it's not easy to do this. Unless you are a digital nomad, which most of the people at this conference are always going to the conferences. It's part of their lifestyle. So you shouldn't get penalized and miss out on this great presentation that we practiced. So we'll work on pulling that together. But yeah, we're a good team, babe. We really are.
I think so too.
Get the power back. Get the freedom back. Get an M pub. And just start with that.